The largest mafia drug operation in American history wasn't run from a penthouse or a private dock. It was run from the back rooms of pizza shops in Brooklyn, and it took one FBI agent, living a lie for 6 years inside the mob, to burn it to the ground. This is the story of the Pizza Connection, a billion-dollar heroin empire hidden behind tomato sauce and mozzarella, and the man who almost lost everything: his family, his mind, his life to prove it existed. Here's what you need to understand. In the 1970s, heroin was flooding into America, but not from where you'd expect. For decades, the main supply route was called the French Connection. Turkish opium, processed in Marseille, shipped to New York. The system worked. Billions moved through it. Then, in 1972, the DEA and French police dismantled it. Labs raided. Kingpins arrested. Supply lines severed. The American government celebrated. They thought they'd won the war on heroin. They were wrong. Because when one empire falls, another rises. And this time, it would be built by men who understood something the French never did. The best hiding place isn't a secret location. It's a business everyone ignores. The Sicilian Mafia saw the vacuum, and they filled it. The architect was a man named Gaetano Badalamenti. They called him Don Tano. He ran the Sicilian Cosa Nostra from a small town called Sinisi. On paper, a farmer. In reality, he controlled a network stretching from the poppy fields of Iran and Turkey to laboratories hidden in rural Sicily. But Badalamenti had a problem. He had product, tons of it. What he didn't have was a distribution network in America. The Sicilians couldn't just show up in New York and start selling. The American families controlled the streets. Anyone who moved product without permission ended up in the East River. So Badalamenti made a deal, not with the strongest family, with the weakest, the Bonannos. The Bonanno family was in chaos, internal wars, leadership disputes. Their boss, Carmine Galante, was eating lunch at a Brooklyn restaurant in 1979 when 3 men walked in and shot him in the face. The cigar was still in his mouth when he hit the floor. The family was bleeding, leaderless, and Badalamenti smelled the wound. He offered them something they couldn't refuse: a cut of the largest heroin pipeline ever built. The connection point was Salvatore Catalano. They called him Toto, a Sicilian immigrant running a bakery in Queens, also a Bonanno captain with direct ties to Badalamenti's operation in Sicily. Catalano became the bridge, Sicilian product, American distribution, and they needed a front, something so ordinary, so invisible, that no cop would ever suspect. They chose pizza. Think about it. A pizzeria in 1970s New York handled almost every transaction in cash. 10s and 20s from working-class customers. No credit cards, no paper trail, and Sicilian immigrants had been running these shops for decades, tight-knit, loyal, speaking their own dialect, never talking to outsiders. To the cops, they were just hardworking families living the American dream. Nobody looked twice at a pizza shop, but behind the counter, something else was happening. Shipments of imported Italian goods arrived at the ports: olive oil, canned tomatoes, wheels of cheese. Inside, pure heroin, kilos of it. The drugs went to back rooms, the money went to cash registers, and from there, it moved. Wire transfers to Switzerland, deposits in Chicago, shell companies in the Caribbean. A financial maze designed to make billions disappear. At its peak, the Pizza Connection moved $1.6 billion in heroin per year, more than the GDP of some countries, all through pizza shops. And nobody knew, not the cops, not the FBI, not even most of the American Mafia, until one man walked into a bar in Brooklyn and started asking questions. His name was Joseph Pistone. He was an FBI agent, but for 6 years, nobody knew that. To the world, he was Donnie Brasco, a jewel thief from Miami, with a sharp tongue and a sharper eye for stolen gems. Pistone didn't look like a federal agent, didn't act like one. He'd spent months studying the streets, the slang, the body language, the unwritten rules of how wise guys talked, walked, and thought. He became Donnie Brasco so completely that sometimes he forgot where the character ended and he began. His assignment was simple: infiltrate the Bonanno family, gather evidence, get out. Infiltrate the Bonanno family. It didn't go that way. In 1976, Pistone walked into a social club in Brooklyn. He met a man named Benjamin Lefty Ruggiero. Lefty was a veteran, a hitman, a true believer in the code. He'd killed for the family, served time for the family, and he was lonely. Lefty took a liking to Donnie. he saw a younger version of himself. Hungry, street smart, ready to earn, he became Donnie's mentor, his protector, his ticket inside. What Lefty didn't know was that every conversation was being recorded, every meeting documented. Every time he introduced Donnie to another made man, he was building the FBI's case against himself. But here's what the FBI didn't expect. Pistone wasn't just inside a crime family. He was inside the crime family connected to the largest drug operation in the world. The more he learned, the bigger the case became. This wasn't loan sharking and stolen cars. This was international heroin trafficking, money laundering across 3 continents, connections to the Sicilian Mafia that American law enforcement didn't know existed. And Pistone was in the middle of it, living the lie. He missed his daughter's birthdays, his wedding anniversary. He couldn't tell his wife where he was or what he was doing. He'd come home after months undercover, and his own children looked at him like a stranger. The pressure was constant, not just the danger of being discovered, the danger of becoming what he was pretending to be. There were moments when Donnie Brasco felt more real than Joseph Pistone. Moments when he had to remind himself which side he was on. And then came the test that almost ended everything. One night, Lefty handed him a gun. There was a guy who needed to be dealt with, someone who disrespected the family. Lefty looked at Donnie and said the words every undercover agent fears. "You're gonna do this one." Pistone had seconds to decide. Refuse, and his cover is blown. Dead before sunrise. Accept, and he becomes a murderer. Everything he'd worked for, destroyed. He talked his way out. Barely. But that night, he realized something. He wasn't gathering evidence anymore. He was surviving. The FBI wanted to pull him out. Too dangerous, they said. 6 years is too long. But Pistone refused. He was too close. The pizza connection case was building. Wiretaps, financial records, testimony from informants. Everything pointing to Badalamenti and Catalano. And then they got the break they needed. In 1980, Italian judge Giovanni Falcone started his own investigation into the Sicilian Mafia. He was tracking the same money Pistone was tracking. The same names, the same heroin shipments. For the first time, American and Italian law enforcement started sharing information. The FBI coordinated with Spanish police, Swiss banking authorities, and Falcone's team in Palermo. The picture that emerged was massive. This wasn't just a drug ring. It was a multinational corporation, supply chains, distribution networks, accounting departments, T. A board of directors spread across 2 hemispheres. Now they had enough to take it down. April 8, 1984. FBI agents moved simultaneously in New York, New Jersey, and Illinois. Italian police raided locations in Sicily and Rome. Spanish authorities arrested couriers in Madrid. In one morning, they dismantled an empire that had operated invisibly for over a decade. Toto Catalano was arrested at his bakery in Queens. Gaetano Badalamenti was captured in Madrid, where he'd been hiding after being exiled from Sicily by rival bosses. The trial that followed was the longest in American history. 18 months, 22 defendants, thousands of hours of wiretaps, mountains of financial documents. 22. The key witness? An FBI agent who'd spent 6 years pretending to be a jewel thief named Donnie Brasco. Pistone testified in open court. He looked at men who'd trusted him, men who'd called him brother, men who would spend the rest of their lives in prison because of what he'd done. Lefty Ruggiero wasn't in that courtroom. When the indictments came down, everyone knew what was coming for him. He'd vouched for Donnie, brought him in. In the Mafia, that meant only one thing. Lefty got the call. He kissed his wife, said he was going out for a while. He knew he wasn't coming back. But something unexpected happened. The FBI arrested him before the hit could be carried out. Lefty went to prison. He never spoke to Joe Pistone again. But he lived. The final sentences came down in 1987. Badalamenti, 45 years. Catalano, 45 years. Dozens of soldiers and associates. Decades behind bars. The pizza connection was dead. And Joseph Pistone, he couldn't go back to normal life. The Bonanno family put a $500,000 contract on his head. He entered witness protection, changed his name, moved his family, 48, disappeared. He'd spent 6 years becoming someone else. Now he had to do it again. This time, forever. But here's what Pistone proved that nobody believed before him. The Mafia wasn't untouchable. The code of Omerta could be broken. You could infiltrate the most secretive criminal organization in the world if you were willing to lose yourself in the process. The Pizza Connection case changed everything. It pioneered the use of RICO to dismantle entire organizations instead of just arresting street dealers. It created the template for international law enforcement cooperation still used today. And it showed that sometimes, the most dangerous places to hide are the most ordinary ones. A pizza shop, a bakery, a social club in Brooklyn. The FBI estimates the Pizza Connection moved over $1.6 billion in heroin during its operation. Most of that money was never recovered. 1. Some say it's still sitting in Swiss accounts under names no one remembers, which raises a question that's never been answered. Badalamenti had a network, Catalano had connections, but someone else handled the money, someone who knew banking, not violence, someone who disappeared before the arrests. That person was never found. And every now and then, when the FBI reopens old files, they wonder, did they really get everyone? Or is someone still out there, sitting on a fortune built from pizza shops and pure heroin, waiting for the world to forget? Some empires fall, others just learn to hide better.